Go on. There it is. Okay, we are live. Welcome back, Weekend Warriors, to another episode of Sunday Night Stream. Tonight, I am joined by a new host of the dojo. This is Goldman.
You can say my name is Oleg. That's fine.
Okay, so this is Oleg.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you do on your channel?
Well, the most recent things I've done was I've been trying to fix this troubleshooting. I do a lot of troubleshooting with hardware and software. I also do PC building. I built this brand new desktop. As you guys can see, it's $3,000. Yeah.
Man,
So
I spent a lot of money on my rig.
yeah, the most recent upgrade was the 32 gigabyte RAM upgrade, which was expensive, and uh, a 6 terabyte West Digital Black hard drive. So I was happy about that. So that was the most recent one. And I do a lot of Skyrim games. I still need to work on creating the playlist for those, and I am currently trying to get authorization from Bandai Namco to let me upload more Tales of Zestria. And so if I can get that, because I've got Bethesda's email slash Bethesda emails, so I can actually upload Skyrim, even though they said it was okay in the first place. But besides that, yeah, I do games, I do troubleshooting, and I do PC building, and I also collect Pokemon cards and coins.
I believe we all did at some point, didn't we?
Yeah, I still do.
Hey, you know
So,
what? That's pretty cool. I mean, I am a toy collector, and
yeah.
lately my toy of choice happens to have six strings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do
Uh,
keyboard. I play keyboard.
oh, that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, there's so let's get right into it. Tonight's topic is going to be a follow up of what we did last week, and that would be physical forms of music media. Now, last week we had covered everything from the friggin' wax cylinder all the way up to compact tapes and CDs.
Yeah.
One brief thing I wanted to note on too is speaking of keyboard, is that we missed a form of playing back pre-recorded music, and two forms actually. And obviously, the obvious, there's standard notation, but there was also player pianos.
Oh yeah.
Now, I actually had one as a kid. My family had one, and I always I loved seeing it play. I was never allowed to set it up because you shouldn't let a 4-year-old set up
Yeah.
a player piano. Um, but I always thought it was magical just to see it start going. And that's just pretty much it. Essentially, it follows the theory of a music box. Now, let's talk a little bit about the music media that we remember while we were growing up. Golden Fighter, since you're new, I will let you go first.
My name is actually Goldman.
Gold. I'm sorry, we've got two people with
Yeah,
gold.
Goldman. Golden Fighter, Goldman. Yeah, there's a lot of gold people in this channel here.
It's a very
So
rich and enriching experience.
yeah, it is. Um, it's kind of ironic. But the things I actually grew up with were vinyl records. Because I was born in 1993, so they still had vinyl records in 2000. Now they gradually got rid of them really quickly and turned. I also grew up with cassette tapes here. You guys can see that. I still have the original ones. Um, some of these probably still play, and one of the damaged ones are like this is the damaged one, and then some of them are just torn apart.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the unfortunate thing about tapes.
Yeah, the cassette tapes don't last that long because the magnetic strip actually wears down due to the air oxidation because it's made of metal, and so when the oxygen hits the magnetic strip, it basically turns into rust. Um,
Exactly. And you're lucky if it even lasts that long,
yeah,
because if the tape stretches a little bit, you already start to notice distortions in the sound called wow and flutter.
yes. Hmm.
But you said you grew up with records. Now, they are actually gradually coming back.
Yeah, they are at they're coming back. They have a couple of stores, like local stores. They're not like a big hit yet, but they're gradually. I haven't seen some around recently though. I have a friend Isaac, who has a clip. He loves music. As a matter of fact, he's a great music theorist. He's also wants to major in philosophy. So he's the one that got me into listening classical music and all this other stuff. And jazz too. Um, so he has a actual record player, uh, obviously a modern one. I used to have the old one where you had to do the like it wasn't electrical. I mean, it was electrical. You had to plug it in, but it was the old one.
Oh,
Um,
like the wooden box with the tweed front.
yes, that's the one.
You know what? I'm actually jealous because the
Yeah.
old tweed
Yeah.
front speakers, they have a warmth about them.
hmm But I forget what my mom did with that. I think she threw it away because I think someone broke it. Maybe me. Yeah, I was pretty destructive. I'm in my younger times, so.
Yeah, I've actually got a Sanyo stereo system that has both a tape deck and a record player.
Oh wow, I've never
Um,
seen one of those.
it's a cheap thing. And actually, a little bit of advice to people watching: if you want to get a record player for not too much money, like it's not going to sound as great as high end stuff. That's something you have to get in your head right now. But
Mhm.
I got this thing for $8, and it still sounds great. I mean, I can play the only record I own. I had to get it to test it, but
Yeah. That's a cool collection. That's still that's really cool. Was that the original?
that this is the original. I bought it at a vintage store that's
I
near.
kind of figured that you can only buy the originals, the vintage.
What I
Early.
find amazing, like now you might have seen this last week if I did it or not, but
Yeah. hmm Yeah, it's cool how they have the green. I've never seen a record album that has green and like colored before. I've only seen black.
well, that's the thing too. Is like that was really big towards the late '80s through the '90s. Is they realized, there's no real reason to have the record be black other than it's cheaper. So special editions were made that had actually moldings in different colors of vinyl and even pictures on them.
Yeah.
Because of this, towards the end of its first incarnation of life, record there were even vertical record players, so that you would set the record on it like this, and it would clip in, and then the needle would just fall in like that.
Oh,
So you
okay.
could look at the record from anywhere in the room; it would be part of the effect.
That's cool.
Now, compact cassettes did not enjoy as
Yeah,
much.
they didn't. Yeah, they weren't that big of a hit.
They were convenient. That
Yeah.
I will give them that. They were convenient. You didn't have to stop in the middle of a song to
They were great for recording, though. They were great for recording.
absolutely. Um, Now, actually, a big misconception people have about tapes is that they were of poor quality. Now,
Actually, no, they use some tapes nowadays. They use for storage because they can store a whole bunch of data. I mean, terabytes of data. And people don't know this, but I'm a PC geek, and they are making little tape rolls that have hundreds of terabytes of SSD flash NAND drive, and that sucker is the first one ever made. But they're not releasing it out yet because it's still in test phase. So that's what they're using the cassette tapes. They're all for huge, massive computer companies. So yeah, they're still
exact,
using they're still using them. Just not what we think of them. We're not what we're used to.
and of course, people probably have less than fond memory, maybe a little kind of a fond memory of using the old compact cassettes. But
Mm,
what they don't realize is that they were better than they don't remember. To put it as Tecmone would describe it. You see, there were several different types of tape, and you probably know this being a PC geek. There was Type 1 ferric tape,
mm-hmm.
Type 2 cobalt tape, I believe it was, and then Type 3, which was chrome tape.
Okay.
there was a chrome tape, and what that was they just coated the typical tape in a sort of an adhesive and dusted it with chrome. Now that actually created a very nice sound quality, and if you played it through the right player, noise reduction would kick in, which means all that ugly background noise that you usually get was reduced, so that you got this really nice, clear, warm sound off the tape.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you get so knowledgeable into music specifically?
I get very bored.
Yeah, I just
So when I get into something, I get into it. There's 4 guitars here, and I'm
yeah
building a 5th.
yeah. It's like me because I taught myself how to build PC because I was bored and I was like, oh yeah, once I build a PC, I'm gonna try to do YouTube. And I was like, I spent 300 hours plus hours doing that, but it pays off. So
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I tried building a PC once, but I
it's
think
not easy. It's
no,
not easy.
no, the
You
instructions
have.
lied to me because like I did everything right.
Mhm.
Okay, there's power cycling through it. There's even like light up circuits, and I'm watching them light up. But I think I'm screwing up somewhere because
So if you tell me what you messed up on, like you tell me what connectors, because I know all the parts of PC motherboard. The power
yeah,
pin, the phaser pin.
like I know that the processor's compatible. I know the RAM's compatible. I
Is
know
is what motherboard type is it? Is it a Z270 or a Z170?
it is a MSI Z270 gaming.
Okay, then it should be an Intel i5 uh C
Oh, see, I threw an
Kaby Lake or
AMD in there.
Skylake. It's
I
either
threw
Kaby Lake
an
or
AMD processor.
Skylake. So which process did you get?
I can't remember, and I'd have to drag my computer up from down there to look down into it. Actually, I couldn't look down into it either because I've got the fan over it. But I think my big screw up was in the graphics card.
Yeah, it's an EVAG,
It's an
EVA.
um from Nvidia, and the
Yeah.
instructions say that it'll take an EVGA, but
Mm.
I looked into it. It's only the EVGAs that have that connector option.
Did you get EVGA GTX 1070?
Uh,
And
well,
six.
let me. I got 2 by accident. I guess it was a bundle, but maybe you'll be able to. My hands are clean, by the way, and just to be safe, big metal object right there. I'm grounded.
Yeah.
The
Well,
EVGA.
with graphics cards, it's not that big of a deal. It's with the CPU process you have to be grounded. That is
Yeah,
very important because of the microstructure inside. The graphics card has a plastic protection cover shroud in it, so that's not as big. You still technically should be grounded, but it's not going to be as major impact as if you were to touch the CPU not grounded. You would destroy
yeah.
CPU.
Like when I was building it initially, I even used the old power source trick.
Yeah, I've got a piece of metal contacted me and tacked onto another piece of thing, or you can just stand on a piece of wood.
This is the
And
GeForce GTX 1050 Ti.
okay, uh,
It was one of their lower end kind of.
yeah, it's the 150 to $200 range. I say it's not $200 in the 150 to 170 range, I believe. Um,
Yeah,
so you could still get a good cane quality on that because of the company. Um, it's got a 4-pin, is my guess, for one 4-pin power connector.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Which actually is weird. No, wait. This one said that it didn't actually need a power connector. It's actually it says it draws power enough from the motherboard because there's no actual ports for the power source to plug into. That was one of its advertisements. Now I'm looking at the back of this, and I think I might have goofed on something. I see 4 screws in here. One of them covered by a little piece of tape that almost looks like a protector of some kind. So I'm wondering if I didn't goof. I'm not going to take the tape off now, honestly. It's like
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's not there as a temporary measure while it's in the box so that it doesn't just kick on when you plug it in.
Well, since this is not the topic to be discussing, since it's the music topic.
Yes. We'll save this for
We'll save this for later time. Anyway, I just
later.
wanted to get an idea of what was going on.
And I appreciate it too. It's great to have someone who's a little more knowledgeable of technology than I am.
Yeah.
Because like I know what I know, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
Like I know home audio.
Mm-hmm. That'd be your stuff, and I'm really good at the PC part. So, you could help me with the home audio setup if I ever get one, which I will eventually. But
oh yeah. Speaking of home audio, can I just say that I think rigs like this and what I've got going on over there, which I won't show you because I've got a huge stack of cardboard boxes left over from Christmas shopping.
Was it 7.1 digital audio surround sound?
No. See, I go a little old school. I try to avoid digital as much as possible. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm drinking emergency. It's giving me the burps. It's just an old Sanyo analog.
Oh wow, that is old. Wow.
It's a combo thing. It's got a turntable on top, a module selector and radio in the center, and a twin tape deck on the bottom.
Ooh.
For copying over tape. Which is one of the reasons I think they tried to kill compact sets. And I've got that running through some KLM speakers.
Oh, okay. Impressive.
Hey,
it's something, though. I mean,
it's something. It's about $15 worth of effort. And that's something I encourage anyone looking to set up a beginner home audio thing. Go to the thrift store, man.
Yeah.
People get rid of old rigs that work perfectly because they want to upgrade. And those rigs are not done doing their jobs yet.
Yeah. They can last for a long time.
Oh, yeah. And especially this one, because this one is actually one of the models built with a little spring shock built into the turntable so that if there's a little bit of shaking, you don't damage the disc. It rocks with the shake.
Okay.
The needle doesn't scratch it. That's another thing I want to talk about, which is carbon or graphite versus diamond tip needles.
Oh yeah, graphite. Diamond tip needles is the one that doesn't scratch the material, right?
It doesn't scratch the material and it doesn't wear down.
Yeah.
At least not as quickly. You're going to get about twice the amount of play out of a diamond tip needle as you are graphite or any other needle format for that matter. Synthetic diamond tips are the way to go.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of old media formats, there's one I wanted to bring up last week, but didn't have the opportunity to. Did anyone else have memories of those little clip-on like keychains that had a little chip port in them? And you would buy these little chips with about 2 minutes worth of song on it. And it was one song. You would just plug it in and it would start playing.
I've never heard of that in my life, actually.
I think it was a product of the early 2000s. It was just one of those things.
It must have been one of the crummy products because I've never heard that in my life. Not trying to diss that product, but
I wouldn't blame you for dissing the product because songs got cut down, chunks were ripped out so they would fit on these little because
If
it
it was
wasn't an
on,
adult thing. It was not an adult thing. It
okay.
was specifically targeted towards little kids because only the really popular songs got turned into these little cartridges.
Oh, okay. That must have been expensive for people to get that though over time.
They found a way to make them cheap because, like I said, it's one song on what is honestly, for what it was at the time, keeping in mind that these little cards containing one song were about that big, and they were released alongside the PlayStation 2 memory card, which was about that
Okay.
big,
Hmm.
which held a lot more information.
Yeah.
So this was like the chip was actually a lot cheaper.
I think I may have a PlayStation 2 memory chip, by the way. Here it is.
I know I've got
Here it is. PlayStation 2 memory. 8 megabytes of PlayStation 2. How about
that was a huge deal back then. That was like a huge memory stick.
I knew it would pay off someday. There.
Oh man,
That
isn't it just
level.
um the thing about like soft state drives like that, especially just memory cards in general, is that they had to have a battery in them
Mm-hmm.
because that was the only way you would get stable memory is if
Yeah.
it was able to create its own power. And this
Well,
happened. This happened to the chips too.
my phone's about to die. No, 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 no. Come on, quick charger.
I'll keep them running. I'll keep them running.
Yeah.
So where was I? Uh, these little chips had a tiny little watch battery soldered into them. And I think you'll be lucky to find one that still works because kids would play the same one over and over again. And that would drain the hell out of that little watch battery. And so eventually, over time, the memory on that card got corrupted.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't play the music anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if it's one song, so you could get another chip. It's much worse when it happens to your PlayStation 2 card.
Yeah. Because you lose all your data.
Hours of gameplay just.
Yeah. Well, the motherboard has the same thing, but which if that happens, you shouldn't take it out unless it's an emergency. You
Yeah,
basically
the BIOS battery, right?
yes, exactly. If you take that out, the only reason you should take it out is if something crashes and you have to reset everything. So it has to basically reset the BIOS setup, the hardware that it was reinstalled, and it's a pain in the butt because you basically have to reinstall parts of the BIOS yourself, and which is not as easy as it looks. Because
Yeah,
ASUS, because the company does that part for you when you get it. So when you take it out, you're basically killing resetting the BIOS, and it also controls the clock on the BIOS.
yeah, which is actually kind of important, especially on the
Yeah.
PlayStation 2 that has time-based events.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Sega Dreamcast did the same thing. Speaking
Yeah.
of the Sega Dreamcast, CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we use those a lot for music, but people do forget that it was also used for other media formats. And that's something to remember is that almost every music media format that has existed since the 70s
Mm-hmm.
was at one time or another converted to use for video.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like records had video disc. Now that was a weird one. You see, video discs were essentially these really sensitive vinyls that you weren't ever supposed to see or touch. As a matter of fact, they were always contained either in the system or in this little plastic caddy. You could not get them out of the caddy, or at least you weren't supposed to be able to get them out of this little caddy without plugging it into the front of your video disc player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, we all know that tapes became film,
Mm-hmm.
VHS.
VHR. Yeah, VHS. Sorry, you're right. VHS.
There was a little interesting thing about compact cassettes, though. Um,
They made them into small VHS ones. I do know that. The compact ones, they conformed them into the smaller versions of the VHS, which would
yeah,
go into the bigger ones, and then you would play those on the big TV.
yeah, they tried to change the format for a while, and it
Yeah,
didn't take off.
yeah. My mom owned one.
You know what? We all have cool things as kids that we never get to show off as adults.
Yeah, because they
Um,
either get thrown away or just get lost. They're treasures. I mean, they're very important treasures that I think we should keep because they're history, and those you can't replace unless you want to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get.
the problem is, I think, is foresight. We have to predict which formats are going to be the successful ones and which ones are going to be the ones that really don't take off. And either way, the thing is, like, it's always the in the moment mentality. People think this won't be worth anything years from now.
Both Photon Review and Fan Edits just asked me this.
Oh, I see what's going on.
Yeah, the
Okay,
following.
yeah, we're okay. So yeah, just to, let them know that that everything's good right now, and we'll probably go on for another 10, 15 minutes or so.
All right.
Um, and I want to actually, since we've only got about 10, 15 minutes left, I want to do something that we typically do just to fill up that last little chunk of time. And it's sort of an open Q&A. Now, it looks like it's just me watching at the moment, so
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask you a few questions for posterity because after the stream ends, YouTube converts it into a permanent video on the Dojo channel. So, you said that you really like building computers.
Yeah.
Do you have any other experience in like some of the older computer formats?
Actually, yes, I do. I am actually currently working on a 2000 and I want to say 2004 desktop. So that has a Windows XP server, and I also got a Windows Vista server, which I've never dealt with. So building the PCs are basic. They're actually basically universal. So when you're building whether a new PC or an old PC, the exact same process for building steps. You have to connect the power supply, you have to connect the graphics card, or just connect the graphics input to the CPU, but that's not recommended because that can overpower your CPU and cause heat issues. Um, so yeah, I'm working on getting those set up and getting those to work. But since I've never worked, the thing that with new builders that they're gonna have issue is getting the BIOS to operate. One is the BIOS, and two is the operating system to work. Those are two big issues. You can have, or you could have, like I had when I put my new RAM in, I may not have pushed down on the RAM as hard as what it needed to be. So my motherboard actually has an indicator light. So red would be for the CPU, yellow would be for the RAM, green would be for the operating system. I'm pretty sure your motherboard has indicators as well because it's a Z170. Depending on how much you paid for it.
It, I paid a couple of hundred for it.
Okay, that's gonna have it's gonna have some way of telling you of what's
It does
wrong.
have essentially the circuits are supposed to light up when they're connected,
Yes.
and the only thing I'm getting right now is the sound booster.
So the first thing when you're building it to do the test and make sure the power supply works. So you connect the power supply into your motherboard to see if the lights work on the motherboard and power supply, and then you connect the power supply into the socket. Don't do anything else to see if that works. And then once you do that, go ahead and install your CPU because you'd know everything else would work once the power supply and motherboard works. Um, Then you'd install your CPU. Go and install your RAM. Actually, go and install your RAM because putting the CPU heatsink on is very difficult before you've installed your RAM. I will say that because I have 32 gigabyte RAMs, which all slots are filled, and that's why I had an issue trying to get that last one into the nearest close PC part. Another issue is the RAM height has to be the CPU cooler has to be a certain height with the case. So if your case is an ATX, which is 22 inches, 21 and a half inches to 23 inches.
No, I've got a Thermaltake Hellfire case.
Okay, then I'm guessing it's a mid M-ATX, which is a mid ATX range, which is the next before that ATX. Then, unless you get one of those unusual ones, which I can show you, I have a BATX, which is a weird format factor. They don't make those anymore. That's a case. So the thing you have to worry about when building PCs is the motherboard has to fit the case.
I made sure of that.
So you have to make sure you get the right CPU for the motherboard. So if you don't get like a Intel i5 4630.
Now, might be where I was tricked again because it's an AMD card, but I did make sure that the CPU type was the same as the socket.
AMD graphics card or CPU?
Processor.
Okay. Now, that if it was an AMD CPU processor, that's a huge difference. I think C270. Just let me go check. I should have a. Let me go ahead and do this real quick. This won't take that long. Thank God I could have a PC that can open up multiple tabs. If you want a website to help you, go PCPartPicker.com. It's a great website. I would definitely recommend. That was the first website I used. One of the people told me about it. They actually tell you what's compatible or not compatible. Pretty much everything.
Okay, see, I was going off of just what MSI was telling me on their product, overviews.
Yeah,
I probably should have.
Starting, that's the worst possible idea. You can get screwed over like crazy. Don't go by what the people tell you. First you'd go to a website that has done multiple builds, and these have professional builds. They also have guides of like modest entry level AMD. So I want to see what their motherboard is. So if you got the wrong motherboard with the CPU socket, that could be a huge issue.
Yeah, well, like I said, the CPU and the socket, like the CPU matches the socket and the motherboard. I just don't know if it's like an issue with the company or.
Well, it can match the size, but in terms of the compatibility with the motherboard, main operating system, if that doesn't match the specs of what is required, because this one, let's see. The motherboard is like a A320. So I don't think you got the right motherboard. The Z170 is for Intel specifically. Z170, Z270 are Intel's.
I know this is the 270.
Yeah, for the motherboard.
But it's probably the same series, so it's probably going to have the same issue.
Yeah.
I've made a rookie mistake.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's your motherboard that's the issue, which would be bad. This is why I do Intel builds, because they're easier to understand with the motherboards versus the AMD. Not criticize AMD, but none of their boards have been that easy to read with the compatibility. So let's go with AMD Ryzen 3. Let's just add this. Then it will give you yeah, the motherboard options for this are let's see, I don't think they have a Z2. Yes, they do not have Z270. They have a BAT AMD B3 350 X370. So they have less options depending on CPU, but they have way more motherboard like options in terms of what motherboard you should get. So it could be the motherboard. The graphics card, I don't think it's the graphics card compatibility. Very rare because they have the company actually makes sure that most graphics cards are compatible. The only time graphics card is not compatible is if you get a server motherboard, and those have very specific requirements. And those actually, I don't think use actual graphics card. They use a different type of graphics input. So
Okay, see, my experience with circuit boards has been rather limited to stuff like this.
yeah.
See, I solder little stuff like this together in my spare time for fun. This is a red laser driver circuit,
Mm-hmm.
minus the diode, as any eagle-eyed laser fanatic will notice. But that is because I have not ordered the diode yet. But it should be soon. I know where it goes. First, I want to clean up possibly the ugliest solder job on this in the world on this thing.
Yeah.
Because well, my solder material went a little crazy, and I tried to fix it as I went.
Did you add have a wet sponge and apply it onto the solder to have it smooth out?
It was used sort of an old rag.
Okay. Yeah. You wet it because the water actually goes on, takes the basically I forget what it's called, where it takes part of the solder and more easy to apply. So you have less spiky parts at the end of the solder, so it goes off. Solder comes off smoother.
Yep.
That's a trick I learned when I took soldering.
And that's actually something I'm going to have to learn to do too, because I have an Epiphone Les Paul Special right over there, and I want to swap the pickups in it, which actually requires a bit of solder work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just kind of what I do. It's just I see something, and if it's not too complex, if it's not like a computer, like I've not touched my computer because I'm afraid of making it worse, which even if it's as far gone as it can possibly get, I'll find a way to make it worse. But with guitars, it's not something I'm going to rush into immediately. I'm going to take it to someone who knows what they're doing. I'm going to have them show me what to do, preferably a few different times.
Yeah. Don't, for whatever reason, don't ever buy a computer. It's the worst idea.
Oh yeah, because they rip you off.
You're paying way more than what they're like. For my computer, I can promise you it would cost more than $3,000 for my build with the 32 gigabyte RAM by itself. That would have cost probably close to $600 or $700 when I paid which mine is RGB, by the way. I paid like 400 some bucks. So yeah, because you got the service and labor, but they also just rip people off because people think that you're getting a great deal when in reality you just got You just have a NVIDIA stock graphics card, which by the way sucks at overclocking. Sorry, NVIDIA, not trying to be mean to you guys, but
Hey, you
the
know what?
other
It's honest, critical review.
yeah, the other companies have way better overclocking, and I'm pretty sure NVIDIA would agree with me on that.
Um,
But that's
we
why,
would definitely love to have you on like a tech talk stream in the
yeah,
future.
that'd be fun.
Unfortunately, though, I think we better wrap this up as it's getting a bit late.
Yeah.
Start a little bit behind schedule as I was trying to figure out with Kenny and everyone just how to get everything set up.
Okay.
But it's great having you on. I want to see more of that energy in the future, and I think now we should say goodbye to our viewers who are catching this on video now, as we've only had jump in towards the end there. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, be sure to like if you enjoyed the content, and be sure to follow us on Twitter. That's at weekend_dojo, all lowercase. I'm going to fix it so that there's a link in the description in the future. This has been El Chizo Reviews with Goldman.
Thanks.
So thank you all once again so much for watching, and as always, we will see you later, you weekend warriors. And